Nathan, what are your opinions on Shrek?
So, first off, the seance, we start by saying, emoji bro, emoji bro, emoji bro, emoji bro. And the second seance, we go, Shrek is a god!
The movie starts with a classic scene. It's been memed to death, and I think everyone knows it by now.
Once upon a time, there was a lovely princess.
Oh yeah, I always forget about the book part. Yeah, right away it's pretty clear what this movie's going for. It has an ugly color palette, lots of gross jokes, adult references, and probably the most inappropriate language they could have in a PG kids movie. Yeah, I imagine some parents are mad. And all of these things were not common for animated movies at the time. And while doing all this stuff and being a pretty edgy movie, it also makes fun of and parodies Disney films and traditional fairy tales. Like, I'm not doing some sort of analysis here, that's literally the first joke of the movie. This film makes fun of some of the tropes and cliches of these kind of stories. Yes, I know I'm talking about the movie that starts with the main character using a fairy tale book as toilet paper before cussing while walking out of an outhouse set to All Star by Smash Mouth, but seriously, for the time it's pretty smart. Like, don't get me wrong, this movie's pretty dumb, but it's also pretty smart for the time. Wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. And hey, speaking of for the time, let's talk about the animation a little bit. After we're introduced to Shrek in the opening credits scene, some humans come by and try to attack him, and the humans do not look good in this movie. This animation hasn't aged well, and it's just as apparent for Princess Fiona as a human who's a main character. However, I can't really criticize this movie for that because the technology was different back then, and still to this day Shrek and Donkey look pretty good. And hey, speaking of Donkey, the next scene introduces him. I'm just gonna skip up to when he meets Shrek so I can talk, but here, I'll show you what you missed.
Hey, I can fly!
Here's the thing about Donkey, is that they do a really good job of making him annoying to the other characters, but not annoying to the audience. Most of the movie is just Shrek and Donkey going on an adventure, so if Donkey was as annoying to us as he is to Shrek, it would ruin the movie. But no, Donkey is the funniest character, which should be true for all comedic relief characters, but a lot of kids' movies seem to mess that up. Shrek and Donkey have the classic character dynamic of the happy, funny one and the straight man that's constantly annoyed by the other character. And that's really what makes this movie, is Shrek and Donkey adventuring. So the plot of the movie starts when a bunch of fairy tale characters end up in Shrek's swamp because they were evicted by Lord Farquaad. So because Shrek wants all of them out of his swamp, he makes a deal with Lord Farquaad that if he rescues Princess Fiona from the tower, he'll get his swamp back.
Hey guys, welcome to
Dude, get out of here, I'm trying to record.
Terrible lighting.
Dude, it's great lighting.
Better.
Hey! Not too much later, Shrek and Donkey save Princess Fiona, so now we have the whole group together, and let me just say, Fiona's character is really good. At first, she just seems like she's a fancy, stuck-up princess, and you're like, oh. But when she starts being nice to Shrek and joins in with the group, she's not like that at all. And as well as that, Fiona plays off Shrek and Donkey really well. Because, like I've been saying, the character dynamics and the relationships are the strongest element of this movie.
Ogres are like onions. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. Onions! Onions!
Oh, you both have layers.
Onions!
Oh. You know, not everybody like onions.
Onions!
Cake! Everybody loves cakes.
Onions!
You know what else everybody like? Parfaits.
Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions!
Over time, seeing these characters get to know each other and like each other more is satisfying. However, I do have a problem with how this adventure back to Duloc ends. I'm going to recap some of the plot here to give some context. We're about an hour into the movie and there's about 30 minutes left. I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. So it's revealed that Princess Fiona turns into an ogre at sunset, and has been hiding this from Shrek and Donkey because she's really insecure about it and doesn't think princesses are supposed to be ugly. Donkey finds out about this, but Fiona doesn't want to tell Shrek. Meanwhile, Shrek is in love with Fiona and is about to go talk to her, before he overhears Fiona talking about herself to Donkey.
Who could ever love a beast so hideous and ugly? And princess and ugly don't go together. That's why I can't stay here with Shrek.
So when Shrek hears Fiona talking about herself and how ugly she is when she's an ogre, Shrek misunderstands this and thinks she's talking bad about him to Donkey. And because of this, Shrek gets mad at Donkey, and it's so frustrating and just cheap feeling that all these characters you saw getting to know each other over an hour suddenly all split up because of a stupid misunderstanding. And then there's this sad montage, and Shrek and Donkey have an argument, and it's just kind of hard to watch, and especially cheap because the conflict gets solved like a second later. I see what they were trying to do. They were trying to make things go bad at the end of the second act, so once everything gets better at the end, it's especially satisfying. Lots of movies do this, and it's dumb in other movies too, but it felt so forced when it happened here. Once Shrek and Donkey started talking to each other for like 5 seconds, they realized it was a misunderstanding. They're friends again, which just proves how dumb the misunderstanding was in the first place. It just feels like there's a much better way they could have pulled off a second act low point without having to resort to something like this. So after Shrek realizes it was just all a big misunderstanding, he remembers that Fiona is marrying Farquaad tonight. So he goes and stops the wedding to talk to Fiona, and as this is happening, the sun goes down and she turns into an ogre. And of course, Lord Farquaad goes crazy and he tries to separate Shrek and Fiona because they've fallen in love. So we got some big conflict here. The stakes are at their highest. But don't worry, because Donkey comes in on the dragon from earlier in the movie and the dragon just eats Farquaad. Yeah, props to this kid's movie for nonchalantly having the main villain get swallowed by a dragon. So yeah, Shrek is a really good kids movie. It's very funny and has lots of emotion, and I just really like it. But at the same time, it's not for everyone. I imagine there's a large group of people that think this movie's the dumbest thing ever. Look at this person. They wrote 32 comments on this video about why they don't like Shrek. I can't even read their argument because I don't know what order these comments go in. If you just like really immature humor, I recommend this movie.